Right, another episode in the gym. I'm very excited. I like this format.
Yes, sir.
And I'm here with one of my good friends, Glen Yang. Thank you for coming on to the show. Thank you for coming to the gym.
Man, I've been waiting to do this.
This is the first time we've had like a formal interview at the gym. I mean, it's usually always a workout.
Usually we're in here to work. This time we're here to talk, so changing it up.
So, just give everybody the 2-minute rundown on the G-Man. Where are you from? How did you get into basketball? What are you doing today?
First off, G-Man, I like that. That's a new one. So I'm Glen Yang. I was born in Vancouver, but I moved to Hong Kong when I was 5 with my family. I lived here till I was 15. Going back and forth. I think similar to you, going back and forth in the summers to Canada and the U.S. Started playing basketball at the age of 10, thanks to our good friend Lap Fong. Lap, shout out Lap out there. Great coach, especially for the youth. Instilled that mentality in me, and really pushed me. So he always instilled you gotta go to the States, you gotta go to Canada, you gotta do this and that to push yourself. So that was always in my mind. So every time I would go back to Canada and the U.S., that was always present, and that was always the end goal. So going back just wasn't enough in the summers. So by the time I was 14, 15. Telling my parents, I gotta get there. I gotta get out of Hong Kong. At the time, it just wasn't a good environment, basketball-wise. So I ended up moving back to Canada. It was either US or Canada. Ended up being Canada. Still a good level. Finished high school there. Did my college basketball there.
Where?
Mount Royal University in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, which is they play in the top university league in Canada. Yep. Some good schools, good players come from there. A lot of pros, and so that was a great learning experience. And luckily, the Hong Kong league runs in the summertime, the pro league here. So I was able to link up with some good friends of ours, Nate Yu, Duncan Reed, Tommy Nixon, who play on South China, and I was playing with them every summer since 2016. So I could play all year. I got a nice contrast of university basketball and Hong Kong pro basketball for 3-4 years, and then after that I played in Spain for a year and a bit. Came back to Hong Kong, played with South China again, and then last year played in the Philippines with the Bay Area Dragons, and most recently I played in the Canadian Pro League in the summer with the Winnipeg Sea Bears, which is the top Canadian league there. So yeah, that's kind of been the journey, man.
I actually, as you were talking, we were having dinner the other night, and I was asking you count as a local Hong Konger.
Yeah.
Do you know of any other local Hong Kong player who's played in Europe before?
No.
See, literally, I was writing the notes, and I was like, I wonder if there's anybody else. So it's very, very possible that you're the first one.
Yeah, I think I am.
Local Hong Kong player to play in Canada. Have you ever heard of another one? I have not.
Professionally?
Yes.
I think I'm the only one.
So you're the only one to do both. Interesting. And this is again, I'm kind of making this up on the fly.
Yeah.
But how much? Because that's like a massive accomplishment.
Yeah.
How much
publicity?
Were you given? Because that's a milestone for the city.
Yeah. I think there's been small pieces of publicity, of course. There's a news article here, social media there, friends and family and whatnot. But I think obviously the lack of credibility and awareness is probably because, it's a similar thing with you and some other guys. It's like we're tweeners. We're not really from Hong Kong, but we are from Hong Kong.
Yep.
Maybe I can't play on the national team because I don't have the correct paperwork, whatever it is, so they don't fully take you in as one of theirs. But then at the same time, it's like Hong Kong is, it's my roots as well. So I have a tattoo of Hong Kong.
Yep.
I have, some of my best friends are Hong Kong. I grew up here, so it's a weird situation.
Yep.
But I think that's the main reason, because I'm kind of in between, am I Canadian, am I Hong Kong?
You have a very interesting story, because you say that you went to a Canadian school. Did you ever have a desire to play in the NCAA, or is that something That wasn't like, talk about that. Like, you didn't play in the NCAA, but I'm going somewhere with this. This is an interesting story.
Is the sky blue? Come on.
Right.
Like, you know, D1 is always the goal.
Right.
D1 was always the goal. I was a huge Duke fan. I was a basketball nut, still am. So it was like, of course, NCAA D1 was always the goal. But, you know, things don't always go the way you plan for them to go.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was, you know, playing against good players in Canada. A lot of those players were struggling to go D1.
Right.
And I was, you know, still adjusting to that level.
Right.
So, you know, I saw the level of the university players there. And there it's interesting. You get 5 years to play.
Yep.
So when you enter that team and that league, you're playing against guys who are sometimes 24.
Yeah, yes.
Huge grown men, right? So development-wise, I was like, okay, I can get better here. I can get better. I can get exposure. And that was, at the end of the day, that was always the goal, more than specific levels. As much as it hurt not to go D1, I was like, I can still get better here, and I was trying to think long term. So
you'd rather, this is a very interesting story, because a lot of you guys out there should think about this if you're ever in this situation. Because Glen today, he sits here as a professional basketball player. You went to a school in Canada that even a lot of North Americans might not know. Like, especially if you're from the United States, you may not heard of Mount Royal, right?
Even Canadian.
So you went to a decent school, good school, but maybe not a powerhouse Canadian school.
No.
Was that a conscious decision?
At the time, I wouldn't say it was a conscious decision, but it was. It felt like a natural flow.
Right.
And obviously, there was an ego part of it of like, oh, I know. It's funny because I went to a camp with that school when I was like 13, and I was like, I'll never go here.
Because you're not good enough, or you're too good?
Obviously.
Oh, you're
I was
too
like,
good.
I'm too
You're
good
too
for
good.
this.
Okay.
In my mind, I was like, I'm too good for this school.
Yep.
13 years old, cocky, arrogant kid, you know, think I'll go, you know, high level D1.
Yeah.
But it wasn't in the cards.
Right.
So it's funny that I end up, it's life trying to give you lessons, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I believe in signs and all that. So I think that's part of what that was. So I ended up going to that school, and then, you know, kind of I had a great career there.
Did you play your first year?
I played a little bit.
Yep.
I was playing in games.
So it wasn't like you were going there and killing everything.
No, it was a huge transition. And there's a couple pros that were on my team, low-level pros. So still a good level. First year didn't play much, but then from my sophomore year to my senior year, I played a lot. I started every game for 4 years.
Sophomore year to your senior year.
Every
That's
game.
4 solid years.
Every game.
So that's like an American college career, basically.
Started every game.
That's great.
Ended up leaving that school with multiple records that I don't really talk about, but like, you know, all-time leading scorer, assists, steals.
Are you
all
really?
that? Yeah, at that school.
Of the school?
Yes.
I had no idea. Wow.
Yes, because they changed. Basically, they changed from. There's 2 leagues in Canada.
Yep.
There's the college league and the university league. So in Canada,
what's the difference
it's
between
different.
College and university?
So college is lower level.
Okay.
University is the top level. So once the school gets big enough and has enough money, they transition.
Okay.
So when I entered the school, they had just transitioned to university like maybe 4 or 5 years prior.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
there's a difference there.
There's a difference.
Okay.
There's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference. So within the university league, I was the all-time. So they're not long-lasting records.
Yeah, but still,
yeah.
Definitely.
So I ended up having a good career there, and then it's funny because like, you know, we're talking about D1, and then this past summer season in Canada, I'm playing every night. I'm playing against blue blood, McDonald's All-Americans, guys who went to Duke, guys who went to Michigan State, Kentucky, and I'm going head-to-head with them, and I'm like, okay, you know, long-term, it kind of paid off. But in the moment, maybe when kids are ending up going to these schools, it's probably hard for them to see.
So if you were to give some advice, because like I always like to use your story, because you went to a school that when you were 13 years old, you thought you were way too good for this school.
Yeah.
You ended up playing, which in my opinion is the most important thing.
100%.
Because it doesn't matter if you go to UCLA and sit on the bench for 4 years, like what did you really get out of it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there are kids right now, because there are, listening and watching us speak.
Yeah.
If they had a choice, if you could do this all over again, and you had a choice of going to, say, a mid-major Division I, which is already very, very good, or going to where you may be a rotational player, or you go to a school where you're high valued and you're playing every game, would you make the same decision?
You know, part of me, the competitive side is like, oh, I could have gone in the mid-major.
Sure.
You know, but at the same time, I don't want to always think the grass is greener.
Right.
So, you know, I end up here. I'm doing well. So I probably would do it all over again. Obviously, there's tweaks here and there.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe, you know, later on. But at the same time, no, I think I would do it all over again.
I agree.
Because you can't replace experience.
Yes.
So by the time I was in my senior year, I was the man on the team. So that means I'm the guy they look to in clutch situations. I have to lead the team on and off the court.
It's great.
You know, you have to do all these things that you can't make up and teach in a drill.
No.
In a gym with no people not being on the team. You know, you can't make those experiences up. So I think I would do it all over again.
And then now you're finished with college, and then you immediately made your transition back to Hong Kong?
No, well, yes, actually, because like we said, the league is in the summertime. So right after I finished, my exams that season, the Hong Kong League was starting in April, May. So I came right over for that. Played that summer. The plan was to come back, but protests hit in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And so
which year was this again?
This was 2019.
Right. Okay.
And luckily I got my British passport at the same time. Yep. So, and I had a Spanish assistant coach on my university team. The Hong Kong, South China was like, don't come back. There's no games. There's no league. So I ended up going to Spain instead, the fall of that year. So that's how that happened.
That's when we first met, actually. Kind of.
Yeah.
Around that time.
Yeah, we had met a couple times here and there, but never really worked together. Yeah.
Okay, and then coming back and playing, what was your initial thoughts of the league in Hong Kong? Like, you had played a lot overseas.
Yeah.
Coming back, what were some of your thoughts?
Obviously, we're Hong Kong guys, so we care about the league. And there's obviously things we want to improve with the league. There's some aspects that are great that aren't, that are better than other leagues. Sometimes the fans are great. The media, all that is solid sometimes. It's a speedy game. It's high tempo. But of course, there's other areas that I was like, this needs to get better. This needs to get better. So I think the top teams were solid. Somewhat professional. Eastern, Winling at the time. Tycoon, us, but. The bottom teams, it's like this. These teams need to get better for this league to be respected.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my perspective of it. Yeah.
What do you think? Say, for example, if there's someone watching who wants to become an import. Yeah. Who's American, who's Canadian, who's European, and they want to have the experience of coming to play in Hong Kong or even China. What are some of the things that you would say? Oh, this is what Hong Kong does well.
I'd say your lifestyle is going to be great. It's pretty westernized here. You're going to have access to great facilities like Strive, whatever. The fans are going to be great. The money will be good. And like I said, when playoffs come around, the level will be good. But at the same time, you're going to struggle sometimes with, maybe if you're on a lower team, the practices won't be great. You're not going to learn a lot. A lot of it's going to be on your own to push yourself. Stay disciplined, to keep that level. Because, there's been imports, I think, that have come here and got worse, to be honest. They come here and got worse because they're in a bad environment. They can coast. So it depends at what point of your career you're in and how disciplined you are. One guy that comes to mind that I respect a lot is Marcus Elliott, who was an older player. He came here with Eastern, but he was very self-disciplined. Very self-disciplined. Could have easily just coasted, drank his wine, ate his steak. Got worse, but he was very locked in. Didn't know many people in the city, but he was locked in, did his job, and ended up beating us and won a championship. So you can kind of pick your route. So if you know yourself and you can handle it, it's a great place to be, and it could be a stepping stone to other leagues in Asia. So it's give or take, and a lot of it's on your own. I'd say that's kind of the summary. Yeah.
It's a lot on you.
It's a lot on you. It's a lot on you. You're not gonna. Other pro teams, like when I was in Europe, it's very guided. It's kind of like college, an elevated college in Europe. So
like Spain.
You do everything with a team. You have the schedule. You have your trainings this time. Even this past summer in Canada, it was like regiment. They have it all ready for you. So a lot of the time on your own, you don't really have that much time on your own. It's all given to you. Here, it's like your team might only practice 3 times a week.
So for me and you, we actually have a very, very similar story. Both of our dads are Chinese. We went to international school here. We left at 15. I left exactly at 15 years old. What are some of the things, and you said that you went back every summer to Canada. That sounds exactly like me. I would go back and play in all the camps in America as well. And that was a huge differentiator.
Right.
Because every time I was stepping on the court in Hong Kong or training by myself,
You're
it
like-
wasn't really preparing for Hong Kong basketball. It was preparing to face the guys
Yeah.
at 5-star or Eastern
5-star,
Invitational,
yeah.
that kind of level. So, I mean, that goes without saying that was a huge part.
Yeah, definitely.
How could Hong Kong improve if a Glen Yang was now going to school? How could they have helped you more? And in return, be able to produce more good players, which would then make the Hong Kong basketball team better?
I think it's a great question.
Yep.
First of all, I think there's many layers to that question.
Sure.
But you know, it starts at the top. I think, you know, the people who are in power have to put in place systems like other countries, Europe, Canada, US, whatever, that create, you know, very competitive environments for these kids, and promote that, support that, line it up with the professional teams, you know, so there's a pipeline. These kids are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel where if I do push myself, there's a career at the end of this, you know, so that has to be the first thing. So I think the HKBA, the league itself, has to change and be an exciting
From the
environment.
inside out.
Inside out, you know, it can't start with coaches. It can't start with programs.
Yeah.
It has to start with the guys with the money. If we're being real, the guys with the money who run the league, who run the Hong Kong team, and make it attractive, so parents can see that. You know, the people, schools can see that promote that.
There's value in sports.
There's value in sports. You know, other sports in Hong Kong do that much better, I think, than basketball. I have friends who play tennis here, and there's a girl I know, Eunice. She's been playing tennis since she was a kid, and she's a pro. She's a pro female tennis player, and it was a straightforward. It was hard, but it was a straightforward pipeline of like step by step. I do this, then I can do this, then I can do this. Hong Kong players, they don't know what to do really.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point.
They don't know what to do to get to that point.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many little, it's not a clear-cut thing. So when I was a kid, it's obviously better now.
Yeah.
There's better programs now, but it was like, you're just finding your own way. I was just playing street ball all the time. Luckily, I had a coach like Lab, which a lot of kids probably look at you the same way.
Yeah.
That are, you know, on you all the time. But if I didn't have that, I'd be screwed.
Right.
I'd be screwed.
And you mentioned something very interesting, because you say what needs to improve. And like you and I both know, I just came back from the States. I brought 9 girls over to play AAU.
Yeah, huge.
And I really believe that, and see, you and I may have taken this for granted because our moms are from overseas.
Yeah.
Where we would go back all the time.
We have access.
We have access, and we really didn't think of it as education.
No, yeah.
But when you take a bunch of local girls or boys over, you realize that's the biggest education.
Oh yeah.
So do you think that it is important that a certain amount of funds are allocated to youth development, and that being travel?
That exposure.
Yes.
For sure. I think 100%. Because like we were talking about earlier, you can't teach experience, right?
Right.
You can't teach that environment where you're bringing these girls or boys over there and they're going against dogs, you know? They're going against girls, boys, whoever, who all they know is basketball.
Yes.
And all they know is competition.
Yes.
Talking trash and all that. Where they don't get that here. You can't make that up. So whether it's a week there, 2 weeks, a month, that's so impactful for them. I think that is 100% necessary and has to be a big part of the solution.
Talk about culture and community when it comes to Hong Kong, because I just made a newsletter about, and I'll tell you why I'm asking you about this, about culture and community. And the reason that I did that is because we just had a girl, Nicole, leave a week from Monday.
Right.
Like she just left.
Yeah.
And the reason is because I firmly believe that I could be the best, I could be Greg Popovich or Brian Gorgon in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that I'm not able to teach her, like culture and community. So say for example, if you come from a culture where everybody's working hard on their skill development every day, as a byproduct, you're just gonna go into that community.
You don't even think about it.
And you don't even think about it.
Yeah,
but there's nothing that I can tell you until the cows come home, work on your left hand, work on your left hand. But unless you see your peers working on your left hand,
you're not going
to. Or if I'm like, dive on the floor, push people out of the way, like all this kind of aggressiveness that may be a little bit different in terms of culture, that it's very, very hard to teach that.
No,
now, I'm just giving you an example. Talk about what you see in terms of culture and community.
Yeah.
What you say, it could be good, it could be something that may need to change. Like, what is your perspective when I talk about those two words?
I think that's everything.
Yep.
I think that's everything, honestly. And I think it's gotten better since when I was coming up, but there's still so much room for growth.
One example, give me one example.
A very specific example is you go to a Hong Kong street court, or you're going to a pickup game, or anywhere, and they see someone that's better than them, they don't want to play against them.
Interesting, right?
They don't want to play against
Where in America, the line would be like
exactly.
out the park.
That's exactly who they're inviting in. But you go to this street court, I've seen it thousands of times. We'd come in with our squad.
Yep.
And they're looking over the shoulder. They've been gundoing, everyone's next. All of a sudden you come up, no. We're not playing with you. So it's an ego thing.
Yeah.
It's a face thing. And how do you improve, right?
Yeah.
Competition.
You have to.
Failure. Adversity. You play against people who are better than you. And that's how you get better. So that is kind of like a microcosm of the entire community and culture here.
That's so good.
With basketball and with many other things too. It's a bubble.
Right.
And they don't want someone to come in and burst that bubble because it exposes their weaknesses. And that's kind of the hard truth here. And I would see that all the time. Luckily, like I said again, Lap always feeding me that knowledge, but he was like, you got to get out of this bubble to see that there's so much more. And that's how you improve. So it's the same thing with the league. There's been, until recently, they had a rule where imports had to live here a full year before they can even get on the court.
Right.
So how are you going to have, all these good players come in if they have to live here a year? That's not going to happen. There's all these politics involved. So I think the culture and community has to be more embracing competition and embracing the outside, and realize they don't know everything. Bring in more foreign coaches, bring in more foreign players, open things up. That's how you're going to improve. But
do you think there's a desire to improve? Can I ask you something? I'm going to ask you this. Is there a desire to improve, or is there a desire to improve on their own terms?
Yeah, I think, if we're being real, it's that one.
Right.
It's that one, for sure. I think.
What does that even mean, though?
It's a controlled environment.
Okay.
That's what they want. I think it's a controlled environment. It's safe. They're still going to have their piece of the pie. I think that's what the fear is, that, you're letting other people in. Maybe you're not as relevant, or people don't look at you the same. So that's why they don't. As long as they're comfortable, it's a comfort thing, I think. At the end of the day, it's a comfort thing. It starts at the top. The guys who own the league are comfortable.
Right.
The guys, people in control of every team here are comfortable.
Yeah.
Players are comfortable, but they're not going to get better.
No, absolutely
they're
not.
not going to get better. So it's definitely, like you said, it's the second one. It's control.
And I'm going to circle back with you right here and talk about mindset, because this pretty much goes back into the college piece. Just a quick story about that. Angela and I were on the phone with Nicole, who just left the other day.
Yeah.
And now her new AAU coach, who's a good friend of mine, his niece is being recruited by 15 Division I schools.
Wow, that's amazing.
So Harvard, Brown, BU, BC, Providence, all these schools.
Big time.
And now Nicole has to hang with 15 of these girls.
Yep.
And you can imagine she doesn't feel great about herself.
Yep.
So we are on a conversation, and she's guarding this girl who's 5'2", who's committed to Rhode Island University, which is a big time D1 school. And she's like, I can't guard this girl. And I'm like, you have no sympathy for me, because that's exactly why I sent you there.
Yep.
Is so that you feel this way.
Yep.
And that is how, I want you out of safety. I want you get out of this. I don't want you to feel safe.
No.
Right?
No,
and that's kind of what we're talking about. Now, if we're going to go back to the Mount Royal thing, you, by a lot of people's standards, have gotten what most boys and girls want out of their basketball career. You're a professional basketball player. But one of the things that really strike me about you, and I was telling Angela this, is one of the things that strike me about you is two things. Number one, your open-mindedness, and number two is your ability to learn non-linearly, which means that you can you understand that failure is part of the process and get back up from that. Because I always talk about two types of pain. I talk about emotional pain and I talk about physical pain. Physical pain is easy. We put you on the bike and you want to throw up and that's it. And then 5 minutes later, it's nothing. But that emotional pain is what we were just talking about, of that safety of getting better on my own terms because of safety. You have very little of that, and I feel like you thrive when the competition gets high.
Yeah.
Where did you get that?
Honestly, I think it just came from repetition.
Of failing. Okay.
Of failing. And of course, everyone hates to fail.
Of course.
You know, worst feeling. You're at the bottom. But I think at every peak, there's a valley, and there's always a higher peak, right? So you're always going to experience that failure. And the more that you get used to that failure and realize that that's the time you're going to improve, and you see it as an opportunity, you know? Nothing great was ever done without failure. No. Nothing great was ever done without failure. And people forget that, like, all the time. You have to fail. You have to fail. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Right. It was broken down.
Right.
Cities were broken down, built up stronger. It's always happening like that throughout history of anything, let alone just basketball. As a player, you have to break yourself down. It's like, you know, someone's building a statue, you're breaking things down. You know, you're breaking it down and then you build it up stronger. And that's what I love so much. So that's why I feel like I thrive when there is failure, because it's so much mental focus and spiritual growth and all that to realize, oh, this is good for me. Instead of, oh, like, you know, end of the world, it's over, let's quit. Like, no, like, this is where you build yourself, you know, and you get that strength of like, oh, I went through that failure, this is gonna be light. This is gonna be easy. Yeah. And let's see where this takes me. Right. You know, because, you know, it's cliche, but the journey is the reward, and the journey is a roller coaster of failures. So, you know, it's like no mud, no lotus, whatever you want to call it, however you want to look at it, you need that failure, and it's being uncomfortable. And that's just where I feel like I thrive, because it's like I love improvement, and that's time and time again, that's how you improve. So like that's just.
So it's almost like it was a muscle that was built.
Yeah. You know, I think there's certain things in my childhood, you know, that made me tougher, that I had to like always come back up from. And, you know, everyone has some kind of experience where they draw strength from. So I think it was built up over time. But like I said, like it comes from experience. It's a muscle. And it's a realization, and it takes reps, it takes practice. No one's gonna get that right away. Even right now, like you know, something happened yesterday that wasn't ideal. No. But let's see where it goes. Yeah. So you gotta look at it like that.
Always gotta be ready, right?
Exactly. And it's like life's not perfect. Like it's always gonna be different than you expected. So let's see where it goes. And the thing that happened yesterday that wasn't ideal, immediately I think back to many other things that weren't ideal that led to greatness, that led to pivotal moments in my career and life that I'm thankful for now. So it's like, just sit with it, you know, let the water settle, and then you build back up.
Right. So. You would never watch the Batman movie where his parents are like alive and happy.
Yeah, they're living a great life.
And he woke up one day jacked without working. Go. Or you would never watch Rocky where he's the best, and then he's always the best, and there's no training montage.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
I'm always the best. Why am I going to train?
Right. Yeah. So that's a boring movie,
it's
right?
Boring as hell.
It's super boring.
There's no story.
Exactly.
Right. It just makes the story better.
That's exactly
Who doesn't want a great story? Right. So why not embrace it? But of course, the bigger the failure, the harder it is to bounce back.
The bigger the suffering.
The bigger the suffering. But you know, what's life without suffering? So, I think that's just where it comes from.
Now, again, like I mentioned before, like you played. What year are you in your pro career right now?
Entering 5.
Yeah.
2021, 22.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Yep.
5, I think. 5.
And it's been a diverse one because you're not just stationed in one place. So I would say you're one of the few people who is like, okay, he's actually a pro because he's gone around the world and experienced different things. So I really respect that.
Yeah, appreciate that.
A lot of people might be like, well, G's life is the best. He has no problems. There's just, as a pro, you're just chilling. And Like there's just no problems. What are some of the things that we don't see as a professional basketball player that we don't even think about?
Yeah, there's a lot. I'll tell you that. Obviously, I think it's easier now to think that with a lot of pro players or people who are successful. You look at what's the first thing everyone looks at every day? Their phone. You look at social media, it looks great, right? But how often is someone posting? It's like every few, you're not posting your whole life. You're not posting the failures, you're not posting the mental, instability that comes with this life a lot of the times. Because, yeah, it's great, I'm playing basketball all the time, but too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. And when it's a job, you don't get the choice of, oh, I feel like playing today. I'll go play with my friends. Or nah, I'm gonna sit at home. I'm gonna watch some videos. I'm gonna hang out with my friends and family. You don't get that choice. 8 a.m. comes every day, and you got to be on the court ready to compete with guys who are, playing for their families,
right?
Feeding their families from playing this game. So every day they're doing that. It's like you got to be ready to go, or you're gonna get ran over. So that's one part of it. It's like the happiness part of keeping the game a joy has become more and more of an awareness thing of like, how do you keep that a joy at all times? It's not always going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be fun, but you got to at least enjoy it to a certain extent. So you have to find balance in your life. And then just being away, like you said, it's cool. I've played all over the world, but I'm away a lot of the time from my friends and family. You're missing weddings, you're missing birthdays, you're missing just time with these people, which kind of sucks sometimes. You're not going to make a lot of things. I haven't been with my family for Christmas in a couple years, and some guys it's been like 10 years.
Yeah, for sure.
Things like that add up. And then it's just the motivation of like keeping going. The discipline. Most of the time for me, that's not an issue, but there's days, like I said, you just don't feel like doing it, and you have to find a way. And then obviously the physical toll is probably the last piece of that, where your body's gonna hurt. Your body's gonna hurt, and you gotta just find ways to push through that and make sure you're okay. So those three things.
5-year pro, what are some advice that you have for pros? Because we do definitely have pros listening to this.
Yeah.
In terms of like, what about life after basketball? How often do you think about that?
Increasingly more and more. Increasingly more and more.
Talk to me about that. Like what?
Shout out you for
shout out me.
Good advice on a lot of those things. And some other important people in my life. And I feel pretty lucky and blessed that I'm at this age, still relatively young, that I'm starting to do things to look after the life after basketball. But many people just don't think about it. Many guys just don't.
Painful. They don't want to think about it.
They don't want to think about it because it's all sunshine and rainbows right now. But it's like a lot of us, all we know is basketball.
Yeah.
Some guys have no college degree. Some guys have no experience outside of this game. They've been playing competitive basketball since they were 10, 11 years old. So 20 years later, it's like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like, what are you gonna do? So it's something I definitely think about more and more, and I'm getting more and more excited about. I recently started, my own training business on the side. Kaizen, Kaizen Hoops on Instagram.
What does Kaizen mean?
Kaizen means continuous improvement.
Okay.
Japanese, Chinese term, continuous improvement in whatever you do. It's a samurai, originated from a samurai. I love, that kind of history. Warriors, always trying to be better at whatever you're doing, so it can affect any area of life. So, training, starting to do little clothes, content, coaching. So we'll see where
is that kind of what you want to do after basketball, or do you have any idea?
It's definitely part of it.
Yeah, it's an interest.
It's an interest. All those things I just listed are an interest. And I'd love to own my own facility one day. I know it comes with its challenges, but that would be another thing. So some kind of combination of all that, and hopefully I can use right now, because when you're a player, we all know you have the spotlight. So hopefully I can harness that spotlight and help lead into these things, over time. But
as a professional basketball player, how much time, chill off time, do you get?
More than people think.
Yeah. So which is my next question, actually. When you increasingly think about life after basketball. Do you think professional players should be exploring other things when they have that off time, to make sure that they have somewhat of a nest egg when they're done, or at least their path after basketball might be I don't want to say paved, but there's like a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. No, hands down, for sure. You know, we grind, we practice, we train, but then, you know, it's 2 p.m. and you have the rest of your day. And obviously you want to rest. You know, you want to, you know, recovery, nutrition, but you got hours every day, most days, where you can spend on something productive, and that would help you in the long run. And it's hard, you know. It's easy to go play video games, chill out, do this and that, and watch Netflix, but those days are gonna stack, and you don't wanna be that 35-year-old that's looking back like, oh man, like,
I should have spent that 2 to 5 p.m. slot. Thinking about.
Not spent that money on, let's, you know, a little off-air stuff, but let's not talk, you know, but though you don't want to be that guy. So it's little things stacking, I think, little habits every day, but we definitely have time every day to do that, for sure.
Well, I learned a lot, and I appreciate all this, and I'm gonna do something that I've never done on this show, and we're gonna play 10 questions with G. So I'm just gonna make this up on the spot.
Okay.
And you're gonna answer in like a timely fashion. Like it doesn't, like some of these might be yes, no, what's your favorite color questions. Other might need to be a little bit thought out of.
Let's do it.
Okay, favorite NBA team?
Toronto Raptors.
Toronto Raptors.
Used to be the Suns.
Favorite NBA player of all time?
I have two.
Okay.
Kobe and Steve Nash.
Nice.
Yeah, Kobe and Steve Nash.
Biggest pet peeve?
In life?
Yeah.
In life? Probably no manners. No manners. No
manners.
No emotional awareness of like of how to treat others.
Okay.
How to run the room. All
yes.
That. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Favorite food?
Gotta go with sushi.
Yes.
Gotta go with sushi.
Something that you have I don't know, it could be anything and I don't know what it is, or you have a reputation for that is in fact not true. So I'm gonna say for example, people think that this guy is actually really, really a social guy because on the court he's loud, he's outgoing, but in person he might be an introvert. I'm just giving you an example of something like that.
I think people have told me before that like they thought I was gonna be different than I am. You're intimidating. Sometimes people say, oh, you're intimidating, you have tattoos, you're a big guy, whatever, and then it's like they meet me and I feel like I'm a pretty approachable and positive guy. So it's like sometimes it's that maybe, sometimes it's probably that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite movie?
Last Samurai.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Last Samurai with Tom Cruise.
Okay.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, go watch it.
I like that. This is a good movie. Okay. I'm not gonna say favorite, but most memorable teammate of your 5 years so far.
Memorable.
That could mean a lot of different things, but I'm like teammate. It could be someone in Spain, it could be someone in Hong Kong, it could be someone in Canada.
The most memorable. Can I name a couple or just one?
You have two.
Two.
Yes.
I'll have to go with Nathan Yu and Miles Powell.
Okay.
Nathan Yu and Miles Powell for different reasons.
Right. Understood. Favorite country to vacation in?
Ooh. I went to Bali last year. That was great.
Yeah.
I love Mexico. But yeah, anywhere with a really nice beach and good food and fruit.
Food and fruit.
Fruit is very important on my vacation.
Okay.
I need very fresh fruit.
Leaves me the next question. Your favorite fruit?
My favorite fruit is by far mango.
Yeah. Good.
And berries, blueberries, blackberries is a close second.
Okay.
But mango is
mango for sure. Last question is, what's one thing that people don't know about G? For instance, I'm going to give you for instance. Actually, this used to be for me because I'm dyslexic.
Okay.
So people think I don't read. When in fact, you and I are close, so you know I always read.
Right.
Something like that.
Probably that I'm pretty spiritual. I'm very into spirituality, philosophy in that world, and I'm trying to tap into that more. So I think people probably just don't know that about me. Yeah.
What have you been doing so far to
Man, my dad introduced me into Taoism. I'm very into Bruce Lee. You know, a lot of different, like I'm into yoga. I love learning about different types of yoga, the background of it, different religions, spirituality, in all essence, and all that stuff. So that's something that interests me.
2 more things before we finish, is I want you to talk about your brand. What is Kaizen?
Yes,
you kind of
went
over it. Go deeper into it. What is it? What do you hope for it to be?
Right. So basically started it as a side business, training, like more of a training business. So I've done multiple camps. I really just started it this past January, February, so pretty recently. I feel like I've done, had some good traction so far. I like the logo, and then kind of just wanted to see where it would go. Started doing clothes a little bit too, and then hopefully, as I said, like that can lead into different sections, including a facility, maybe a team, who knows, but I want to just keep building it. It's a basketball related brand, and I just want to impact as many people as I can through the brand that latch onto my journey, and that have similar journeys of whatever they're doing to just try and improve and get better. So that's pretty much the brand.
Okay, I'm sure you have a lot of people a lot of people have asked me to have you on the show. Where can people find you, reach you? And reach out to you maybe for motivation or to find out how you got to where you are today?
So I'm on Instagram, gyang13, or Kaizen Hoops on Instagram as well. You can message me there. It's what I frequently use, and then I'll have some other apps going soon that you can also access me on. But stay tuned.
All right, guys, I appreciate you watching. This is one of my closest friends, and he's one of the hardest workers. I have just so many amazing things to say about him. But really, really look into his stuff, look into what he's doing with Kaizen. It's awesome. But one thing that Glen really impresses me with is, again, I mentioned this before, is his open-mindedness and his ability to overcome any kind of hardships and keep moving. It's really, really your superpower, and I commend you for it. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
And love being on it, man.
Hopefully we'll have another episode.
Yes, sir.